I'll never forget the moment my whole world came crashing down. Picture this. I'm standing in my childhood kitchen in Denver, Colorado, still in my black funeral dress, mascara streaked down my cheeks, and my sister Madison is literally laughing at me. Not just a chuckle. I'm talking full-on, head thrown back, evil villain laughter. "You seriously thought Dad left you something?" she sneered, waving a copy of what she claimed was our father's will in my face. "Emma, honey, you're adopted. You get nothing. Zero. Zilch. The house, the business, the cars. It's all mine now." My knees nearly gave out. Adopted? How could I be adopted? I looked just like Dad. Same green eyes, same stubborn chin, same way of frowning when we were thinking hard about something. But there Madison stood, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the granite countertop that I'd helped Dad pick out just 2 years ago, looking at me like I was some kind of charity case. "That's impossible," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Dad would have told me. We were close. We talked about everything." Madison's smile got even crueler. "Oh, Emma. Sweet, naive Emma. You really think you knew him? You think you were his favorite because he took you fishing and taught you about the hardware store? Girl, you were just his little project, his good deed. But blood is thicker than water, and I'm his real daughter. The hardware store. God, that place meant everything to me. Every summer since I was 12, I'd worked there alongside Dad, learning every nut, bolt, and power tool in the inventory. He'd always joked that I had better business sense than Madison, who preferred shopping to working. "This store will be yours someday, kiddo," he'd say, ruffling my hair. "You've got the heart for it." But now, according to Madison, it was all hers. I grabbed onto the kitchen island for support, my mind racing. "Show me the will," I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want to see it myself." Madison clutched the papers to her chest dramatically. "Why? So you can try to contest it? Face it, sis. Oh wait, we're not actually sisters, are we? You're out of luck. Pack your stuff and get out of my house." The way she said my house made my stomach turn. This was the house where I'd grown up, where Dad had taught me to ride a bike in the driveway, where we'd spent countless evenings watching old Western movies and eating his famous chili. Now she was kicking me out like I was some kind of stranger. "I need time to process this," I said, my voice getting stronger. "And I need to see that will with my own eyes, Madison. Something doesn't add up here." She rolled her eyes. "Fine. You've got until Monday to get your crap and get out. But Emma, don't even think about fighting this. I've got lawyers and you've got... What? Your little teacher's salary? Good luck with that." As I walked up the stairs to my childhood bedroom, the room with the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling that Dad had helped me put up when I was 8, my mind was spinning. Adopted? How could I not have known? And why would Dad leave me nothing after 26 years of treating me like his princess? Something was seriously wrong here. My gut was telling me that Madison was lying, but I needed proof, and I was damn sure going to find it, because if there's one thing Dad taught me, it's that you never give up without a fight. And Madison was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this story so far, please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to follow for more dramatic stories like this one. Trust me, you won't believe what happens next. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this story so far, please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to follow for more dramatic stories like this one. Trust me, you won't believe what happens next. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept tossing and turning in my childhood bed, staring at those damn glow-in-the-dark stars and thinking about everything Madison had said. Adopted? It just didn't make sense. I had Dad's eyes, his stubborn streak, even his weird habit of humming while doing dishes. But then again, what if I was just seeing what I wanted to see? By 6 a.m., I was dressed and heading to the one place I knew might have answers. Dad's best friend, Mr. Rodriguez, who lived 3 houses down. Carlos Rodriguez had been Dad's buddy since high school, and if anyone knew family secrets, it would be him. I knocked on his door, probably looking like a hot mess with my puffy eyes and yesterday's clothes. When he opened it, his face immediately softened with concern. "Emma, mija, what's wrong? You look like you haven't slept." "Mr. Rodriguez, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." I took a deep breath. "Am I adopted?" His face went through about 5 different expressions before settling on confusion. "Adopted? Emma, what are you talking about? Where did you get that idea?" Relief flooded through me like a dam breaking. Madison said, She showed me Dad's will, and she said I was adopted and that's why I didn't inherit anything. Carlos's expression darkened. That girl. Emma, come inside. We need to talk. His kitchen smelled like coffee and cinnamon, just like it had when I was little and would come over to play with his daughter Sophia. He poured me a cup and sat across from me at his worn wooden table. Emma, I was there when your mother was pregnant with you. I drove your parents to the hospital the night you were born. You are absolutely, 100% your father's biological daughter. Madison is either lying or seriously confused. The relief was overwhelming, but it was quickly replaced by anger. Then why would she say that? And why would she fake a will? Carlos leaned forward, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. Because Madison's been jealous of you your whole life, mija. Your father loved you both, but you were his mini-me. You shared his interests, his work ethic, his values. Madison was always more like your mother. God rest her soul, focused on appearances and social status. But the will. Emma, your father came to see me just 2 months before he died. He was worried about Madison's spending habits, her attitude. He said he was updating his will to make sure you got the store and the house, because you were the only one who truly understood what they meant to him. My heart started racing. Are you saying there's another will? I'm saying your father was a smart man, who knew his daughters better than they knew themselves. Madison might have a will, but I'd bet my life savings it's not the real one. I stood up so fast I nearly knocked over my coffee. Where would he keep the real one? Well, he always used Thompson and Associates downtown for his legal stuff. But Emma, Carlos grabbed my hand. He also had a safe in his office at the store. He showed me once, behind that old painting of the mountains. Said it was where he kept his most important documents. My mind was racing. The store, of course. Dad spent more time there than at home, especially after Mom died. If he was going to hide something important, it would be there. Mr. Rodriguez, thank you. You have no idea what this means to me. Emma, be careful. If Madison is desperate enough to fake a will, there's no telling what else she might do. And maybe bring someone with you to the store, just in case. As I walked back to the house, I felt like I was seeing everything clearly for the first time in 48 hours. Madison's smug confidence, her rush to get me out of the house, her refusal to let me see the will properly. It all made sense now. She was playing a game, and she thought she was winning, but she had no idea who she was messing with. Dad didn't raise a quitter, and I wasn't about to start now. I just needed to get to that safe before Madison figured out I was onto her. Getting into Harper's hardware without Madison knowing was going to be tricky. She had the keys now, and knowing her, she'd probably changed the locks already. But I had something she didn't know about. The spare key Dad had hidden under the loose brick by the back entrance. He'd shown me when I was 16. Just in case of emergencies, kiddo. Well, this definitely qualified as an emergency. I waited until 2 p.m., when I knew Madison would be at her weekly nail appointment at that fancy salon on Cherry Creek. The girl was nothing if not predictable. I parked 2 blocks away and walked to the store, my heart pounding like I was about to rob a bank instead of entering my own father's business. The store felt different somehow. Empty. Sad. Dad's presence had always filled this place, his laughter echoing from the back office, his whistling while he restocked shelves, his patient voice explaining different drill bits to confused customers. Now it just felt hollow. I made my way to the back office, past the rows of tools and supplies I knew by heart. Dad's office was exactly as he'd left it, papers scattered on his desk, his reading glasses folded next to his favorite coffee mug, and there on the wall, the painting of the Colorado mountains that Mom had given him for their anniversary years ago. My hands were shaking as I lifted the painting off its hook, and there it was. A small digital safe, just like Mr. Rodriguez had said, but I needed a code. 4 digits. I tried Dad's birthday. Nothing. Mom's birthday. Nothing. My birthday. Still nothing. Then it hit me. The date the store opened. Dad always said it was the second most important day of his life, after the day I was born. I punched in 0318, and the safe clicked open. Inside were several documents, but the one on top made my blood run cold. It was a will, all right, but not the one Madison had shown me. This one was dated just 6 weeks before Dad died, and when I read it, I literally had to sit down. To my beloved daughter, Emma, it began, who has shown more dedication to our family business and values than I ever dared hope for. I leave you Harper's hardware, the family home, and the majority of my assets, knowing you will honor the legacy your mother and I built together. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was the next section. To Madison, who I have recently discovered has been embezzling money from the business accounts for the past 18 months, I leave the sum of $50,000, enough to start fresh, provided she seeks professional help for her gambling addiction and makes restitution for what she has stolen. My sister had been stealing from Dad's business. That's why he'd changed the will. That's why she was so desperate to get me out of the picture. But wait, there was more. Another document. This one from a private investigator Dad had apparently hired. The report detailed Madison's secret life, the gambling, the mounting debts, the forged checks. She owed money to some seriously scary people in Vegas, and she'd been using Dad's business as her personal ATM. I felt sick. All those times Madison had volunteered to do the bookkeeping, all those late nights she'd spent helping at the store. She'd been robbing us blind, and Dad had known. He'd known and hadn't said anything to me because he was trying to protect me from the truth about my own sister. Then I heard it, the sound of a key in the front door. Madison's voice, but she wasn't alone. A man's voice, deep and threatening. "I don't care what your family situation is, lady. You owe Tony $50,000, and he wants it now. You said you'd have it after your dad's funeral. I'll have it." Madison's voice was shaky, desperate. "I just need a few more days to sell some stuff. Tony doesn't do extensions. You know what happens to people who can't pay their debts." My blood turned to ice. Madison hadn't just been stealing from Dad. She'd been gambling with dangerous people. And now they were here, in our store, looking for money she didn't have. I quickly photographed the will and the PI report with my phone, then locked everything back in the safe and rehung the painting. I needed to get out of here, fast. But as I crept toward the back exit, I heard Madison's voice getting closer. "Look, everything in this store is mine now. The tools, the inventory, everything. That's gotta be worth at least $50,000. Your daddy's little hardware store? Princess? This junk wouldn't cover half of what you owe." I slipped out the back door just as I heard them enter the main store area. My hands were shaking as I fumbled with my car keys. Madison wasn't just a thief. She was in deep trouble with the kind of people who didn't just sue you when you couldn't pay. And now I had proof of everything. The real will, the embezzlement, the gambling debts. Madison had played her hand, but she had no idea I was holding all the aces. The question was, what was I going to do with them? I drove straight to Thompson & Associates, the law firm Dad had used for over 20 years. My hands were still shaking as I walked into their downtown office, clutching my phone with the photos of the real will. The receptionist, a kind-looking woman in her 50s, recognized me immediately. "Emma, oh honey, I'm so sorry for your loss. Your father was such a wonderful man." "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. I need to speak with Mr. Thompson urgently. It's about my father's will." Her expression shifted to concern. "Of course, dear. Let me see if he's available." 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from Richard Thompson, Dad's longtime lawyer, watching his face grow increasingly grave as he looked at the photos on my phone. "Emma, this is very serious. This is definitely your father's will. I helped him draft it myself, but if your sister has been presenting a different document..." "She is. She told me I was adopted and that Dad left me nothing. But, Mr. Thompson, it gets worse." I showed him the photos of the private investigator's report. "She's been stealing from the business, and she owes money to some very dangerous people." Mr. Thompson leaned back in his chair, looking older than his 60-something years. "Your father suspected something was wrong. That's why he hired the PI and changed his will. Emma, legally speaking, you are the rightful heir to everything your father left behind. But practically speaking, if your sister has already taken possession of assets, what do I do? We need to act fast. I'll file an emergency petition with the court to freeze all of your father's assets until we can sort this out. But Emma, you need to be very careful. If Madison is involved with dangerous people, and she's desperate..." I left the lawyer's office with a plan, but also with a knot of fear in my stomach. By the time I got home, it was almost 6 p.m. Madison's car was in the driveway, but so was another car I didn't recognize, a black sedan with tinted windows. I parked across the street and called 911, keeping my voice low. "Hi, I need to report suspicious activity at my house. There are men inside who threatened someone earlier today." I gave them the address and stayed on the line until I saw the police car turn onto our street. Then I walked up to the front door of my childhood home and used my key one last time. Madison was in the living room with 2 men in expensive suits who looked like they'd stepped out of a mob movie. They all turned when I walked in, and Madison's face went white. "Emma, what are you doing here? I told you to pack your stuff and leave." "Funny thing, Madison. I've been doing some research today. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photo of the real will. Turns out, this house is actually mine, along with the store, the cars, and pretty much everything else Dad owned. The color drained from Madison's face. That's impossible. You're lying. Am I? Richard Thompson seemed to think it was pretty real when I showed it to him an hour ago. He's filing papers with the court as we speak. One of the men, the bigger one with the scar on his neck, stepped forward. Lady, we don't care about your family drama. We're here for the money Madison owes our boss. Well, here's the thing, I said, my voice getting stronger. Madison doesn't actually own anything to sell. She's been lying to you, just like she's been lying to everyone else. Just then, I heard the beautiful sound of police sirens getting closer. Madison's eyes darted to the window, panic spreading across her face. What did you do? She whispered. I called the cops. See? I have evidence that you've been embezzling from Dad's business for over a year. That's felony theft, Madison, and these gentlemen here just threatened you in front of a witness. The two men exchanged glances and started moving toward the door, but it was too late. 3 police officers were already walking up the front steps. Nobody move. The next 20 minutes were chaos. The 2 men were arrested for intimidation and making threats. Madison was taken into custody for questioning about the embezzlement, and I was left standing in the living room of my childhood home, finally understanding that I was truly alone. But as I looked around at the family photos on the mantle, pictures of Dad teaching me to fish, of family barbecues, of Christmas mornings, I realized I wasn't really alone. Dad was still with me, in this house, in the store, in all the lessons he'd taught me about standing up for what's right. Madison had tried to steal my inheritance, but she'd underestimated the most important thing Dad had given me, the strength to fight back. The police station was buzzing with activity when I arrived the next morning. Detective Sarah Martinez, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s, had called me in to give a statement about the embezzlement. But when I got there, she had news that made my stomach drop. Emma, we've been digging into your sister's finances, and it's worse than we thought. She didn't just steal from the business. She's been running a whole operation. Detective Martinez spread out a series of documents on the table between us. Bank statements, credit card records, receipts. Madison has been using your father's business credit to purchase inventory that she then sold for cash. She's been doing this for almost 2 years, not 18 months like the PI report suggested. I stared at the papers, feeling sick. How much? Conservative estimate? About $180,000. But Emma, there's something else. We found correspondence between Madison and a lawyer in Chicago. She's been trying to sell the business to a development company for months. My blood ran cold. Sell it? But Dad would never. She forged his signature on preliminary paperwork. The sale was supposed to go through next week, right after she got you out of the picture. The hardware store, the land it sits on. She was going to sell it all to pay off her gambling debts and disappear. I felt like I was going to throw up. Dad's store, the place where he'd built his life, where he'd taught me everything I knew about business and integrity. Madison was going to sell it to some corporate developer who would probably tear it down and build condos. What happens now? I asked. Well, she's been charged with embezzlement, forgery, and fraud. She's looking at serious prison time. But Emma, you need to know, she's been talking, and what she's saying, it's not pretty. Detective Martinez leaned forward, her expression sympathetic. She's claiming that you were in on it, that you knew about the embezzlement, and helped her cover it up. What? I jumped up so fast the chair fell over. That's insane. I had no idea what she was doing. I believe you. Your father's lawyer believes you. But Madison is desperate, and desperate people say desperate things. She's trying to negotiate a plea deal by claiming you were an accomplice. I sat back down, my mind reeling. Not only had Madison stolen from Dad and tried to steal my inheritance, now she was trying to frame me for her crimes. My own sister, the person I'd grown up with, shared secrets with, fought with over toys and boys and everything else sisters fight about, was trying to destroy my life to save her own. Detective, I need to see her. I need to look her in the eye and ask her why. Emma, I don't think that's a good idea. Please, I need to understand how she became this person. How someone I shared a childhood with could do this to our family. An hour later, I was sitting in a sterile interview room, waiting for them to bring Madison in. When she finally appeared, I barely recognized her. The confident, smug woman from 2 days ago was gone. In her place was someone who looked broken, desperate, and very, very scared. She sat down across from me, her hands cuffed, and for a moment we just stared at each other. "Why?" I finally asked. "Why would you do this to Dad? To me? To us?" Madison's eyes filled with tears. "You wouldn't understand, Emma. You were always his favorite. Everything came so easy for you." "Easy?" "Madison, I worked in that store every summer, every weekend. I learned every aspect of the business because I loved it, not because it was easy. But don't you see? That's exactly what I'm talking about. You loved it. You loved spending time with Dad, learning about hardware and customers and inventory. I hated it. I hated the smell of that place, the dirty work, the boring conversations about screws and paint. But Dad never saw that. He just saw that you were willing to do it and I wasn't. So you stole from him?" "I started gambling because I was lonely, Emma. After Mom died, Dad threw himself into work, and you threw yourself into helping him. I felt like I didn't have a family anymore. The casino was the only place where people paid attention to me, where I felt important. I wanted to feel sorry for her, but the anger was too strong. So you paid for that attention with Dad's money. It started small, just a few hundred here and there. But then I started losing, and I needed more money to win it back. And then I owed people, scary people, and I couldn't stop. And the will? The fake will?" Madison looked down at her hands. "I found the real one in Dad's desk after he died. I saw what he'd left you, and I panicked. I knew if you saw it, you'd figure out what I'd been doing. So I had a friend who works at a print shop help me make a fake one. A friend who's probably going to prison now, too. Emma, please. I know what I did was wrong, but I'm scared. These people I owe money to, they're going to kill me if I don't pay them. And now the police want to send me to prison. I'm trying to work out a deal, but you're willing to take me down with you." Madison started crying harder. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I need help. I need you to help me." I stood up, feeling strangely calm. "You're right, Madison. You do need help, but not from me. What you need is to face the consequences of what you've done and get the professional help Dad wanted you to get. Emma, please. No, you stole from Dad. You lied to me. You tried to steal my inheritance, and now you're trying to frame me for your crimes. I'm done." As I walked out of that interview room, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. For the first time in days, I knew exactly who I was dealing with. Madison wasn't my sister anymore. She was a stranger who happened to share my DNA, and she'd made her choices. Now I had to make mine. 2 weeks later, I was standing in the hardware store at 6 a.m. just like Dad used to do. The morning sun was streaming through the windows, illuminating the rows of tools and supplies that represented 3 generations of Harper family history. But today was different. Today, I wasn't just Dad's helper. I was the owner. The legal battle had been swift once the evidence came to light. Madison's fake will was obviously fraudulent. The real will was legally binding, and her criminal charges made any contest impossible. Thompson and Associates had worked around the clock to ensure the business assets were unfrozen and that I could take control before any more damage was done. But I hadn't just inherited a business. I'd inherited a mess. Madison's embezzlement had left the store's finances in chaos. Several vendor relationships were strained because of unpaid bills, and the staff was demoralized and confused. I had about 3 months to turn things around before the store would have to close permanently. That's when I decided Madison was going to help me fix what she'd broken, whether she wanted to or not. I pulled out my phone and called Detective Martinez. "Detective, it's Emma Harper. I have a proposition for you. Emma, if this is about your sister's plea deal, it's not about helping her. It's about making her pay for what she did in a way that actually means something." 2 hours later, I was back at the police station, but this time I wasn't there to give a statement. I was there to make a deal. "Madison, I think that's a beautiful idea, but I have a condition." She looked nervous. "What kind of condition?" "I want you to be my full partner, not just a small ownership stake. I want us to run this business together, as equals." Dad always dreamed of Harper's Hardware being a family business that lasted for generations. He just never imagined it would take us this long to figure out how to be a real family. Madison's eyes filled with tears. "Emma, I don't deserve that. After everything I did, you're right. You didn't deserve it then, but you've earned it now. You've paid your debt to society, you've paid your restitution, and more importantly, you've proven that you've changed. Dad would be proud of who you've become." We stood there in our father's store, surrounded by the tools and supplies that had been our family's livelihood for 3 generations, and I realized that this was what Dad had really wanted to leave us. Not just a business, but a second chance to be the sisters he'd always known we could be. "There's one more thing," I said, reaching under the counter. "I've been saving this for the right moment." I pulled out a small wooden box that had been sitting on Dad's desk for as long as I could remember. Inside were 2 matching silver necklaces, each with a small hammer charm. Dad had these made for us when we were kids, but Mom thought we were too young. He told me once that he was saving them for when we learned to work together instead of against each other. Madison picked up one of the necklaces, her hands shaking. "Emma, I can't believe you kept these all this time." "I kept them because I never stopped believing that someday we'd figure out how to be real sisters. It just took a little longer than Dad probably hoped." We put on the necklaces, and for the first time in years, I felt like we were truly a family again. Not the broken, jealous, competitive family we'd been before, but something new, something stronger. "You know what the crazy part is?" Madison said, laughing through her tears. "I spent so many years thinking Dad loved you more than me, but now I realize he loved us both exactly the same. He just saw different potential in each of us." "He saw your potential too, Madison. He just didn't live long enough to see you realize it." As we closed the store that evening, I thought about everything that had happened since that terrible day when Madison had told me I was adopted and that I'd inherited nothing. She'd been wrong about the adopted part, but in a way, she'd been right about the inheritance. What I'd inherited wasn't just money or property. It was the strength to fight for what was right, the wisdom to know when to forgive, and the love of a father who'd never stopped believing in his daughters. Madison had tried to take away my inheritance, but in the end, she'd helped me discover something far more valuable: the power of redemption, the importance of family, and the truth that sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming the person you were meant to be. The store was thriving. Our relationship was stronger than ever, and Dad's legacy was secure. Madison had sneered that I would get nothing, but she'd been wrong. I'd gotten everything that really mattered, and now, so had she. 5 years after Dad's death, Harper's Hardware had become more than just a local business. It was a symbol of integrity, family values, and second chances. The ethics program had expanded nationally, and Madison had become a sought-after speaker on gambling addiction and white-collar crime prevention. We'd opened 3 more locations, created a scholarship fund that had helped over 100 students, and built a business that employed 32 people in our community. But most importantly, we'd rebuilt our family. Madison had been clean from gambling for 6 years, and had become one of the most respected voices in addiction recovery. She'd met a wonderful man in her therapy group, and they were planning to get married next spring. She'd asked me to be her maid of honor. As for me, I'd found my calling not just as a business owner, but as someone who could help other families navigate the kinds of crises that had nearly destroyed ours. The ethics program had evolved into a family business mediation service, and I'd helped dozens of families resolve conflicts and rebuild trust. Every morning, I still opened the store at 6 a.m., just like Dad used to do. And every morning, I felt grateful for the lessons he'd taught me, not just about business, but about resilience, forgiveness, and the power of never giving up on the people you love. Madison had been wrong when she sneered that I would get nothing. I'd gotten everything, not just the material inheritance, but the strength to fight for what was right, the wisdom to know when to forgive, and the understanding that sometimes the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemy, but helping them become their best self. Dad would have been proud. Hey everyone, thank you so much for following Emma's incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to follow for more amazing stories about family, redemption, and the power of never giving up. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to share the next story with you, I said, sitting across from her in the same interview room where she'd begged for my help. "I have an offer for you." She looked up hopefully. "Emma, thank you. I knew you wouldn't abandon me. I'm not here to help you escape consequences. I'm here to give you a chance to make things right." I slid a document across the table. "This is a restitution agreement. You're going to pay back every penny you stole, plus interest." Madison's face fell. "Emma, I don't have that kind of money. That's the whole point. You're going to work for it. The state has a work release program for white-collar criminals. You'll serve your sentence, but you'll also work 40 hours a week at jobs that pay into a restitution fund. Every penny you earn goes toward paying back what you stole." "Emma, that could take years. Try a decade, maybe more. But here's the thing, Madison. You don't have a choice. Because if you don't agree to this, I'm going to make sure you serve the maximum sentence for every single charge. And when you get out, I'll sue you in civil court for everything you've stolen, plus damages, plus legal fees. You'll never escape this debt." I leaned forward, my voice getting harder. "But if you agree to the restitution program, I'll support a reduced sentence. You'll still go to prison, but you'll get out sooner if you work to pay back what you stole." Madison stared at the document, her hands shaking. "This is cruel, Emma. I'm your sister." "No, Madison. Cruel is stealing from your dying father. Cruel is trying to sell his life's work to pay gambling debts. Cruel is trying to frame your sister for your crimes. What I'm doing is justice." She signed the agreement, but that wasn't the end of my plan. Oh no, I was just getting started. Over the next month, I worked with the district attorney's office to ensure Madison's case got maximum media attention. "Local woman embezzles from family business" was the headline in the Denver Post. The story detailed how Madison had stolen from our father's hardware store, tried to sell the business illegally, and attempted to frame me for her crimes. But the real stroke of genius was what I did with the business itself. Instead of just trying to save Harper's hardware, I decided to turn it into something that would honor Dad's memory while ensuring Madison's crimes were never forgotten. I partnered with a local business school to create the Robert Harper Ethics in Business program. The hardware store became a case study in how family businesses can protect themselves from internal theft, and Madison's crimes became a cautionary tale told to hundreds of business students every year. I also worked with the local police department to create a small business crime prevention program, using our store as the headquarters. Madison's mugshot hung in the conference room, along with a detailed timeline of her crimes, as a reminder of what happens when family members betray trust. Every month, I sent Madison a statement showing how much she still owed in restitution. Every month, I included photos of the store thriving, of the new programs I'd created, of the honors I'd received from the business community. Every month, I made sure she knew that while her crimes had temporarily damaged our family's legacy, they'd ultimately made it stronger. The gambling debts to the Vegas guys, I let them know exactly where Madison would be for the next 5 to 10 years, and that she'd be working to pay restitution to the state, not to them. They weren't happy, but they also weren't my problem anymore. By the end of the year, Harper's hardware was more successful than it had ever been. The publicity from Madison's case had actually brought in new customers who wanted to support a business that stood for integrity. The ethics program had attracted positive attention from the media and business community, and I had learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's succeeding so spectacularly that your enemy's failure becomes irrelevant. Madison had tried to destroy our family legacy. Instead, she'd given me the motivation to build something even better. 6 months after Madison's sentencing, I thought I had everything figured out. The store was thriving. The restitution payments were coming in steadily, and I'd built a new life for myself that honored Dad's memory while proving I could succeed on my own terms. But then I got a phone call that changed everything. "Emma, this is Dr. Patricia Williams from Denver Health Medical Center. I'm calling about your sister Madison." My blood ran cold. "What happened? Is she okay?" "She's alive, but she was attacked in prison 3 days ago. She's been in intensive care and, Emma, she's been asking for you." I stared at the phone, my mind reeling. Madison had been in minimum security, working in the prison laundry as part of her restitution program. Who would attack her there? "I'll be right there," I heard myself say. The drive to the hospital felt like the longest 20 minutes of my life. I kept thinking about the last time I'd seen Madison, signing that restitution agreement with tears streaming down her face. I'd felt so righteous, so justified in my anger. But now, hearing that she was hurt, all I could think about was the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. When I walked into the ICU, I barely recognized the woman lying in the hospital bed. Madison's face was swollen and bruised. Her arm was in a cast, and she had tubes and wires connected to various machines. But her eyes were awake, and when she saw me, she started crying. "Emma," she whispered through damaged lips. "You came." "Of course I came." "What happened?" "The women I owe money to in Vegas. They have connections everywhere, even in prison." She tried to sit up but winced in pain. "They said this was a message, that if I don't pay them soon, next time will be worse." I felt sick. In all my planning for Madison's punishment, I'd never considered that the people she owed money to wouldn't just give up. They'd wait, and when she was most vulnerable, they'd strike. "Madison, how much do you still owe them?" $47,000. But with interest and penalties, it's more like $60,000 now. I did the math in my head. At her current rate of restitution payments, it would take Madison 8 more years to pay back what she'd stolen from Dad. The Vegas people weren't going to wait that long. Emma, I know I have no right to ask this, but could you help me? I'll pay you back, I swear. I'll sign over any claim to anything Dad left. I'll work for the rest of my life to pay you back. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. The arrogant, selfish woman who'd tried to steal my inheritance was gone. In her place was someone who was scared, broken, and genuinely sorry for what she'd done. But more than that, she was someone who might not survive another attack. Madison, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Are you actually sorry for what you did to Dad, or are you just sorry you got caught? She closed her eyes, tears leaking from the corners. I dream about him every night, Emma. I dream about the disappointment in his eyes when he found out what I'd been doing. I dream about all the times he tried to include me in the business, and I just wasn't interested. I was so focused on what I didn't have that I never appreciated what I did have. And me? Are you sorry for what you did to me? You were always the better daughter, Emma. Always. Dad knew it. I knew it. Probably the whole town knew it. But instead of trying to be better, I got jealous and angry, and I made horrible choices. I tried to take away the one thing that made you happy, because I couldn't stand that you deserved it more than I did. For the first time since Dad's funeral, I felt something other than anger when I looked at Madison. I felt pity, and maybe, just maybe, I felt the faintest stirring of forgiveness. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I'm going to pay off your debt to the Vegas people. Not because I forgive you, and not because I think you deserve it, but because you're still my sister, and I'm not going to let you get killed over money. Madison's eyes widened. Emma, I can't let you. You don't have a choice. But here are my conditions. First, you're going to finish your sentence and complete your restitution payments exactly as agreed. Second, when you get out, you're going to get help for your gambling addiction. Real help. Therapy, support groups, whatever it takes. And third, you're going to work for me at the store. Work for you? You're going to start at minimum wage, doing inventory and cleaning. You're going to learn the business from the ground up, the way I did. And you're going to prove to me that you understand the value of honest work. Madison started crying again, but this time it seemed like relief. Emma, why are you doing this? After everything I did? I thought about Dad, about all the times he'd talked about second chances and family loyalty, because that's what Dad would have wanted. He never gave up on either of us, even when we disappointed him. And because holding on to anger is exhausting, it's time to let it go. But as I said the words, I realized I wasn't quite ready to let go of everything. Madison would pay her debt to society, and she'd pay her debt to me, but she'd also have a chance to rebuild her life, to become the person Dad had always hoped she could be. It wasn't the ending I'd planned, but maybe it was the ending we both needed. 3 years later, I was standing behind the counter at Harper's Hardware, watching Madison help an elderly customer find the right screws for his kitchen cabinet project. She was patient, knowledgeable, and genuinely helpful. Nothing like the selfish, impatient woman who'd tried to steal my inheritance. These should work perfectly, Mr. Johnson, she said, bagging up his purchase. And if you have any trouble with the installation, just bring them back and we'll help you figure it out. As the customer left, Madison turned to me with a smile. Remember when I used to hate helping customers? Now it's actually my favorite part of the job. It hadn't been easy these 3 years. Madison had completed her prison sentence and worked every day to pay back her restitution. She'd gone to therapy, joined Gamblers Anonymous, and slowly rebuilt her relationship with me and with herself. She'd started as a minimum wage inventory clerk, but she'd worked her way up to assistant manager, proving every day that she'd learned from her mistakes. The store had flourished beyond my wildest dreams. The ethics program had expanded to include partnerships with 3 local colleges. We'd opened a second location across town, and the Robert Harper Memorial Scholarship, funded by a portion of Madison's restitution payments, had helped dozens of young people pursue business degrees. But the real victory wasn't financial. It was personal. Emma, I need to tell you something, Madison said, her voice getting serious. I've been thinking about what I want to do with my life, and I want to start speaking at schools and businesses about gambling addiction and white-collar crime. I looked at her, surprised. Madison, that would mean talking about everything you did, people knowing about your mistakes. I know. But Emma, if my story can help even one person avoid the choices I made, then maybe all of this will have meant something positive. Maybe I can turn the worst thing I ever did into something that helps people. I felt tears starting to form in my eyes. This was the sister I'd always hoped Madison could become. Someone who took responsibility for her actions and wanted to help others. There's something else, she continued. "I've been saving money from my salary, and I want to buy back a small ownership stake in the store, not because I think I deserve it, but because I want to invest in our family's future. I want to be a real partner in what we're building here." I was quiet for a long moment, thinking about everything we'd been through. The lies, the theft, the betrayal, but also the healing, the growth, the slow rebuilding of trust. "Madison, I think that's a beautiful idea, but I have a condition." She looked nervous. "What kind of condition?" "I want you to be my full partner, not just a small ownership stake. I want us to run this business together, as equals." Dad always dreamed of Harper's Hardware being a family business that lasted for generations. He just never imagined it would take us this long to figure out how to be a real family. Madison's eyes filled with tears. "Emma, I don't deserve that. After everything I did, you're right. You didn't deserve it then. But you've earned it now. You've paid your debt to society. You've paid your restitution. And more importantly, you've proven that you've changed. Dad would be proud of who you've become." We stood there in our father's store, surrounded by the tools and supplies that had been our family's livelihood for 3 generations, and I realized that this was what Dad had really wanted to leave us. Not just a business, but a second chance to be the sisters he'd always known we could be. "There's one more thing," I said, reaching under the counter. "I've been saving this for the right moment." I pulled out a small wooden box that had been sitting on Dad's desk for as long as I could remember. Inside were 2 matching silver necklaces, each with a small hammer charm. Dad had these made for us when we were kids, but Mom thought we were too young. He told me once that he was saving them for when we learned to work together, instead of against each other. Madison picked up one of the necklaces, her hands shaking. "Emma, I can't believe you kept these all this time. I kept them because I never stopped believing that someday we'd figure out how to be real sisters. It just took a little longer than Dad probably hoped." We put on the necklaces, and for the first time in years, I felt like we were truly a family again. Not the broken, jealous, competitive family we'd been before, but something new, something stronger. "You know what the crazy part is?" Madison said, laughing through her tears. "I spent so many years thinking Dad loved you more than me, but now I realize he loved us both exactly the same. He just saw different potential in each of us. He saw your potential too, Madison. He just didn't live long enough to see you realize it." As we closed the store that evening, I thought about everything that had happened since that terrible day when Madison had told me I was adopted and that I'd inherited nothing. She'd been wrong about the adopted part, but in a way, she'd been right about the inheritance. What I'd inherited wasn't just money or property. It was the strength to fight for what was right, the wisdom to know when to forgive, and the love of a father who'd never stopped believing in his daughters. Madison had tried to take away my inheritance, but in the end, she'd helped me discover something far more valuable. The power of redemption, the importance of family, and the truth that sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming the person you were meant to be. The store was thriving, our relationship was stronger than ever, and Dad's legacy was secure. Madison had sneered that I would get nothing, but she'd been wrong. I'd gotten everything that really mattered, and now, so had she. Hey everyone, thank you so much for following Emma's incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to follow for more amazing stories about family, redemption, and the power of never giving up. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to share the next story with you.